Are we recording?
Yep, we're recording.
Solid.
So I'd like to call this meeting to order. We acknowledge the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee peoples. I have received 3 regrets for this evening, or 4 actually. One from Phil, one from Director Bativiu, one from Director Lafarchola, and one from President Symington. But it seems like we have quorum here, so we're good to get going. So can I have
What
a
other
motion?
director are we missing? Or are we missing anyone?
We're missing a couple more, but they've not sent the regrets.
Okay. Will you touch base with them? Because
Yeah, I'll touch base with them.
Thanks.
So can I have a motion on the table that the board of directors adopt the agenda as presented with an exception of the direct inspection committee reports? I did not have the time to strike those committees this week, so we'll have to postpone them to next meeting. So do I have a motion? A motion by Director Bodger, seconded by Director Corey. Would you like to speak to your motions? Any discussion on the matter? As I see none, we'll move into voting. All those in favor? All those opposed? And any abstentions? Okay, as I see none, the motion passes with unanimous consent. In order to comments from the chair of the board and CGO. Hi, everybody. I have a few things to talk about today. Number one, the monitoring reports. I got a bit confused as to who should be completing GP2I. You'll see that it is not it's not completed today, but it will be completed for next meeting. I'll get that to you all as soon as I can. The second thing I wanted to talk about were events. I'm going to send an email out this week about the exact date about them, but here's the rough ballpark of what we're going to do. We want to have a meeting in Brantford, probably next week. We're going to have a board social or Wolf's dinner and another ownership linkage event in Waterloo. So I'll reach out to all of you about the dates that you can make it, and then we will come up with dates for all of them. Yeah, that's all I got on my end. Moving onwards to comments from our president and CEO. Ian, are you going to take that one, or should we skip over it?
There was the board updates are in the package, the operational updates. So that's the kind of substantive update. If anyone has any questions, I can either attempt an answer or most likely take it back and then we can provide an answer. So if anyone had anything, I'm happy to kind of take some notes and deliver them on to the to Shane and to Phil.
Okay, any questions or comments? Dr. Boucher?
quick question. The first one, or one question. What is the president doing in order to start planning for the transition with the new operational team for next year?
Yeah, so I can speak to that. So the organization has 2 standing committees and an outgoing transition team and an ingoing transition team. So those are teams that meet all throughout the year, and they're pretty self-descriptive. The outgoing transition team is working on kind of equipping the current executive team with opportunities for professional development, preparing them to be offboarded, given the uniqueness of these positions. You're in a role for, a short 1-year contract, and then you're moving out into early career opportunities. So we do our best to try and help those individuals kind of realize the skills they've gained in these jobs, help them to kind of connect with alumni networks, figure out, whether it's further education or other job opportunities. We try to help them grow their network in a variety of different ways. On the incoming transition team, we're kind of, again, meeting all throughout the year, prepping transition programming. So that's anything from, how we do our hiring to things like facilitating meetings with the incoming and outgoing teams. We have sessions that we run both internally as well as with contracted subject matter experts in different fields, such as, managing people, managing your peers. We do some degree of job shadowing. Each year, we're kind of evaluating the previous year, what worked well, what didn't work well. So it's a fairly robust program that we pay quite a bit of attention to, as well as doing continual feedback. So we'll do entrance interviews with the incoming team to get their feedback on what worked well, what didn't work well with the transition period, try and supplement that through the early summer months to get them up to speed with things that they maybe missed, as well as more intensive first week kind of direct onboarding process that we do when they're actually in office for the first week. We have a very structured first week of, again, both sessions, team building, that sort of thing. So we're just in the process now of, we kind of start with the president. So with incoming President Spendler, we have some different things that we've done to get her kind of equipped and ready to both hire and then lead her team. And now that the VP team is hired, we're kind of transitioning into some of the onboarding that we do, things like meetings with existing department staff, outgoing executives, all of that kind of stuff.
Quick follow-up then. Have we been discussing well, we know from the platform, the priorities for the new president. Are we taking that into consideration for building the financial plan for next year?
So yeah, the incoming president is consulted with different elements of the budgeting process, and there are certain things that you can kind of budget for in anticipation of certain types of programming, even if they're not specifically delineated. But yes, there is an opportunity each year for the incoming president to have a voice into that. Okay,
perfect. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Director Bruce. We'll go to Director Corey now.
Two-ish, three questions. With the GSR AVP being reopened, is that just because no one applied, or would that be something best discussed in camera?
It's not something that really needs any discussion. Essentially, there are varying scenarios that necessitate the search needing, or the search being a failed search and starting again. So it's not uncommon. I would say it would be rare to have a year where at least one position isn't reopened. So fairly standard in terms of how these positions operate, but yeah, combination of different factors, but nothing that's out of the normal practice.
And I know that with the team being hired on, I know that they've personally been allowed to kind of disclose who, if they've been hired on. When would that kind of be publicly announced beyond just asking someone if they got hired?
Yeah, usually they do. Usually we do some type of announcement. That's a question that I'll take back and kind of ask. I think there is usually some amount of, we'll often do like formal introductions through social media platforms with, kind of get to know your incoming team type thing. I haven't seen a timeline specifically for that, but I'll inquire about that.
Right. And this is just because my mind's failing me at the moment, but the senators is next meeting? Is that all happening with them?
The packages were due, I believe, 2 days ago. So I'll need to check in to see what was received. Who were they? Because I was away, I actually don't know who were the packages being submitted to.
I got one and only one. I don't know if other emails got any, but yeah, but I only got one in my inbox.
Okay, I'll connect with you tomorrow, Francesco, and we may need to reopen that nomination period.
Okay, sounds good. Any further questions?
Yes. I just want to ask as to the integrity for the HR hiring processes for the VPs. Have our HR policies, which have been updated, been followed to the best of your knowledge?
Is there a specific? I mean, we are pretty in tune and generally always following HR practices. So if there's a specific element that you're kind of looking for, I can take it back. But to the best of my knowledge, we're kind of continuing to follow best practices.
I can bring it up in camera if you'd like.
Sure.
Okay. Any final questions or comments? Okay, so I see none. I see I forgot to do the consent agenda. So As mentioned, GP2I is not included, but can I have a motion on the table to adopt the consent agenda, GP2F, GP2G, and GP2J? Motion by Director Abou-Rashid and seconded by Director Murphy. Would you like to speak to your motions? Any discussion on the matter? As I see none, moving to voting. All those in favor? All those opposed? And any abstentions? Okay, as I see none, the motion passes 6-0 to 1. Moving onwards to comments from the executive director and COO. Ian, was everything said in the operations update, or is there anything further you'd like to discuss?
Yeah, similar. If anyone has any questions coming out of any of those reports, again, I can either attempt to answer or I'll take them away.
Okay. So we can move onwards to the governance coordinator hiring timeline. So Ian, take that away.
Yeah, this is just, I believe, coming out of a question last meeting, just in terms of finalizing the timeline for posting, as well as just getting the board's direction on a hiring committee. I would imagine it would be the same as what we just completed before hiring Ava, which seemed to work pretty seamlessly from my perspective, but just looking for some brief input and just a motion from the board to set that so that we can move forward. There's a separate item of finalizing the compensation for next year's role, which we'll handle in camera if that suits the board.
Okay, so I personally think it's a good idea just to restrike the committee that was already constructed a few months ago. I can easily find out who those names are and we can get that started.
So essentially it would be the incoming chair, so Mohammed, myself, and then an HR rep, likely Liam Chapin again,
Okay,
if that's amenable.
okay. Dr. Abou-Rashid, do you have a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of add a note about the compensation. I don't think it needs to be in camera. I believe that the simplest way that we can do this is to just adjust the wage that we had decided to CPI from the date that we had adjusted it. It's very fair, very transparent, and makes it very simple. So
there are a few components related to one of the other in-camera items that is the reason why we're recommending addressing it briefly in camera.
fair enough. Okay,
Yeah.
then I retract my statement.
Yeah, no worries.
Okay, Vice Chair?
Is our current governance coordinator interested in returning to this role on a year contract?
I, with hesitating to speak on her behalf, I believe she has other plans for next year. I won't disclose that, but I don't believe that's an option. No.
Okay. So would it be good to continue this discussion in camera?
I think we could motion to finalize the hiring committee, and then if the board wanted to specify that the job is posted by a certain date, just so that we've got some direction.
If Ian, do you know the full composition of the committee? I don't recall. I think I was on it. You were on it.
So for the governance coordinator, it was pretty lean. It was just Frankie, myself, and Liam Chapin as the HR rep. So to replicate that, it would be you, Mohammed, as the incoming chair, myself, and then another HR rep, likely Liam, but it could be someone else from that team.
I would like to ask if it would be appropriate to add another director to the role. I would like to get a perspective other than mine. Would the board be open to that?
I personally like the idea. I think it's good to have more views as to who's gonna be our governance coordinator and a representative from the board as opposed to the chair, I think that would be a good decision, but ultimately, I think it's up to Ian's discretion because he has the most experience in hiring. So Ian, what do you think?
I'll leave it to the board. It's again, given that it is a joint report, my role kind of handles the day-to-day, but ultimately it is also a role that reports up to the chair and CGO. So I'll take the board's lead on hiring committee composition.
Vice Chair?
To clarify, Ian, you're looking for a start date to begin the hiring process?
I mean, if the board I believe there were questions, I think we were just looking for an indication of when the board would want the job posted by, and then obviously we have the policies that we use for how long it's posted, but just kind of a starting point to get it up and posted.
So if we move backwards from a start date of May 1st, let's say with the new board, how long does a job need to be posted for, or how long typically are they posted for before interviews are sent out?
I don't recall the exact date that we use. It's something in the neighborhood of I want to say like 10 days to a couple of weeks.
Oh, okay. So, then we could start. All right. I'd like to motion to strike the hiring committee consisting of the director of policy research and advocacy, the chair of board elect, the vice chair of the board, and an HR representative with the posting for the governance coordinator position going up on April 1st.
I'd like to make an amendment.
Actually, sorry, April 3rd is a Monday, so April 3rd.
Let's say like no later than April 3rd.
No later than April 3rd.
Yeah.
I would like to make an amendment. I think that if we had a handover period, that would be quite useful. Having been in roles where I did have to hand off roles, I think that handoff files, I think that this is applicable here. I believe a week would be reasonable. So it would be 1 week prior to April 3rd, which would be no later than March 27th.
Sure.
So to clarify, Mo, or Director Abarouche, pardon me, the start of the new board term is May 1st. So if we post it on no later than April 3rd, that gives them a month to post it, assume about 10 to 14 days of the post being up, and then time for interviews, and then selecting the member for that role. Do you believe that's a realistic timeline, or do you think it should be sooner?
I believe it should be slightly sooner. Having run HR processes, and knowing that there are at least 3 people that are interested in this position that I know, it would be worthwhile to give us a little bit of extra time. And second, like although I do know that the new board starts on May 1st, I think that the governance coordinator role should start about a week before so that they can hand off from the current position. And if I recall correctly, that was one of the things that our current governance coordinator requested, was that more time to prepare. So I think that would be in line with the feedback that we've gotten and just good HR practice.
Okay, so are you open to amending your motion?
Yeah, I'll take that amendment. So the day would be no later than March 27th would be a for
Director Cole.
I just wanted to check whether or not that was giving enough time to strike the committee and everything, because realistically, we're talking about everything done, job posted in a week. So I just wanted to make sure that that's all right.
Well, I personally think it's enough time to strike the committee and to get the post out. I remember we struck committees in less of a time crunch. So I do think it's enough time to do it, but Ian, we'll get your input.
Oh, I mean, you've got more time than that. This is just to have the ad go out. So you would have the committee composition, but you wouldn't need the committee organized until after the posting period and once you were setting interviews. So And we can
Exactly.
definitely, we can turn the post. I don't imagine that there will be any issue having it posted by the 27th if that's the date that people prefer.
Okay.
Yeah,
All good? Okay, so motion by Vice Chair Phillips to have the post up by March 27th. Do I have, and to strike the committee to consist of the chair-elect, vice chair-elect, the director of policy, research and advocacy, and the Chapin. Do I have a seconder?
wait, I believe you read that wrong. It was the chair-elect and the vice chair.
But I said I meant to say vice chair elect. My
Oh,
apologies.
okay, never mind then.
And I would just say a HR representative because we don't know for sure who it will be.
Okay, so to strike the committee to have the chair, then vice chair-elect, the director of policy, research and advocacy, and an HR representative on the committee, and to have the posting out by, or no later than March 27th. So the motioner, got a seconder, motion by Director Bouchard. Would you like to speak to your motions? Any discussion on the matter? As I see none, moving the voting. All those in favor? All those opposed? And any abstentions? Okay, as I see none, the motion passes 6-0 to 1. Moving onwards to our in-camera session. So can I have a motion on the table that the board of directors proceed in camera? Motion by Vice Chair Phillips and seconded by Director Rashid. Would you like to speak to your motions?
Oh,
Yes.
I'd actually like to motion to move in camera with the addition of the director of policy, research and advocacy.
Okay. So motion by Vice Chair Phillips
And the board secretary.
and the board secretary, yes. So motion by Vice Chair Phillips, seconded by Director Rashid. Would you like to speak to your motions? Any discussion on the matter? As I see none, we'll move in the voting. All those in favor? All those opposed? And any abstentions? Okay, as I see none, the motion passes with unanimous consent. I would